Hey, my name is Felix, and at this point, I have finished most of the game modes of Subnautica with my original first survival playthrough, where I built a pretty large base there, and then I had a hardcore playthrough that I finished in about 100 days, in-game days. But the one game mode I had yet to touch was creative mode. So to finish up the last game mode of Subnautica, not counting freedom because that's just like survival but on training wheels, I decided to do what any totally not insane person would do and went into the thermal zone and put a base there. Yep, because why not? Right? Yep, only totally rational and reasonable thoughts on this channel. So, disclaimer, there may be spoilers for any people who haven't made it this far in the game and don't want to see pretty much kind of closer to the end, because it's the thermal zone and then there's the whole alien containment place down there. Also, I am running a couple of mods. Two of them are more or less like core mods that you use to get everything else to work, but the big ones I was using was the decorations mod, which helped tremendously, just giving me a couple more items to build with to decorate the base a bit, and then sleek bases just to make some of the textures inside of the base look a little bit better, because some of the hexagonal patterns on the ground kind of get tiring to look at after a while. And both of those will be linked down below in the description. Well, anyways, welcome to the Thermal City. That's what I'm probably calling it. I'm not really good at names. All my sanity was put into building the base. Okay, just give me a break. So to begin with, I feel like there should probably be some sort of lore and main reason behind the base other than I felt like building it. But there is the alien containment facility down here, and I feel like, that's probably really, really important. And I'd imagine a lot of researchers at some point kept coming down here and wanting to research and find out everything about it. Eventually, small little structures were built in order to support their endeavors down here, and then it just kind of grew and grew and grew until entire, communities were built in order to research and figure out what the heck's going on down here. What can we get out of it? So I generally always like to build my bases with that idea of a lot of people working and living in the base. It gives me a lot of ideas to work with rather than just kind of being isolated to myself, because, honestly, if you are just building for yourself, you can make do with like a couple of tubes and you'd be fully functional and living, right? Having that in the back of our head, I know it's a little unrealistic in our mind that yes, there's probably tons and tons of people, but baby, we suspend our disbelief a little bit and it's like, yes, we have whole teams working here. Everyone is hiding right now for the video. They're camera shy, every single one of them. And now to talk about the overall structure of the base itself, I decided to build it by creating 4 distinct levels. Now, starting from the top, we've got government and the main control room. Generally, I feel like that's where a lot of major decisions are going to be made. And then the second level, we've got recreation, where there are some shops, and the main hospital of the base. I wanted this area to kind of be where the residents will be relaxing and, kind of forgetting that we're in a gigantic lava volcano looking area where a giant sea monster is flying around looking through our windows all the time. I hope we're good neighbors. The third level being living, mainly comprised of dorms. That's and where people can eat, sleep, some cafeterias down there, and then the bottom layer primarily focused on supporting the base. I put most of the reinforcements for the base there because the whole strength was kind of a problem for a base this big, and I needed an area where I could definitely shove a whole bunch of that. To end off the whole overview of the base structure itself, I'm just gonna go over and highlight the extra sections of the base that are kind of branched off from the main center structure of the base, because there are some dedicated specialized area, and these are gonna be 2 thermal plants to power the base, as well as a nuclear power plant section, off from the base just in case something happens. The main containment research whole facility itself, probably where the main base kind of started, and now the primary draw of why a lot of researchers are still coming down here. And then there's the Research Institute, which is kind of like not as dedicated to the containment research, but more for random flora and fauna on 4546B that researchers could be learning about and doing work in the Research Institute. Could also be teaching new researchers that come into the base just about what we learn in this base and, what we've discovered so far, and kind of pass it down. And the final section being the actual main transport area entrance, I would say, of the base itself. And that is where we are going to begin. And I want to show you the deep dive of the rest of this base. When you first arrive to the city, you'll enter our initial Prawn terminal where all the residents can leave or new ones will be coming in. I initially wanted some sort of like Cyclops airport with a lot of Cyclopses kind of like shuttling in, but I forgot that they can't go down this far, so we have prawns instead. And I'll be honest, I don't really have the details of how that works because I don't know how the prawn gets people in my head. Right, just think about it. I see the prawn kind of like carrying a gigantic backpack, like a bus that can sit multiple people, and then it like brings people up and down, and they just get in the we'll hammer out the details later. And the extra room you see in the terminal is just a warehouse for any inbound or outgoing supplies for the base, kind of like a warehouse at a dock or something. Once you get through the terminal, residents will all be funneled into the first major security checkpoint, here to make sure that no one's bringing in any illegal contraband, and where all the residents will most likely be getting identified and be given any access cards depending on their role and what job they have in the city. There's also an extra room for the security when someone needs to be checked a little more thoroughly, kind of like TSA at an airport when they find all of your stolen hotel bathroom soaps. Now, once residents have cleared the security check and are allowed in, we welcome you to the Thermal City, and they will all walk across this glass bridge, and I won't lie, I'm really proud of the view of the base from here. I think it just looks so good how all the base layers kind of stack and are viewable. Now, the main entrance is currently connected to the 3rd level of the base, and that's where all the residents and dormitories are. But instead of continuing through that, I'm going to be going and showcasing the base from the bottom up, starting at our 4th support layer. To get there, I've created what I call the spiral ladders, and I put these, I guess, the corners in quote of the base, and I use these to navigate the various layers of the base. I don't like having ladders inside of areas with high foot traffic because, wouldn't it be kind of annoying while you're walking down a hallway and then there's just a ladder in the middle in the way and then there's people going up and down. So I try and separate the ways you get up and down from the base into their own little sections, kind of like staircases. On to the 4th level, where you'll probably need some sunglasses because it gets bright as heck down here. I mean, we are right on top of the lava layer, so makes sense. Anyways, the 4th level generally contains a lot of the more mechanical kind of jobs we have at the base. This would include the workshops, where any fabrication and supplies that need to be made for the base are created. I try to make this room kind of like an assembly line. I think it came out pretty well, if I do say so myself. And there's also a 2nd workshop with plenty of storage and enough crafting that I assume you could probably collect most of the materials on this planet and keep it in these 2 workshops. There should not be ever a worry of what we can craft in this base. As we make our way down the hallway, I've mirrored it on both the left and right side, so they're exactly the same in both rooms, but now we have made it to the water treatment facilities. Nothing too complicated in here, with some computers and control panels in order to monitor the base's water supply, ensuring the water quality is always the best for all the residents in the city. There's also going to be some storage in the back so that water bottles can be supplied and delivered wherever they need to go. Once you finally get down through the rest of the tunnel, because man, it's a really long tunnel and would probably be really creepy if all the lights were off. We'll reach a junction where we can decide to go left or right, and the layout for each side is the same, but the major difference are the 2 rooms on either side. We're going to immediately jump into the room on the right. This serves as the primary cafeteria for all the residents, serving your daily nutrients of whatever the heck we probably made up in the lab. If it moves, it's probably fresh, most likely. We'll now head back through the junction, this time going left, where we will find the community grocery shop. And I hope you recognize the name. Gives me a little chuckle every time I see it. But here, people can stock up on some of their own personal supplies. You may see all these carts around the place, and they're called lab carts, and they come from the decorations mod. Honestly, they make for some good shopping carts as well for the grocery shop. Thought they looked pretty neat. We definitely have enough shelves to stock whatever Altera branded item or merch that we are probably getting imported into the base. And then you'll also notice there is a back room, just extra storage, while also serving as a break room for our employees of the grocery shop. Alright, now that we are all loaded up with our Altera TM t-shirts and our Altera TM beef jerky, we can head either all the way to the right or to the left. Doesn't really matter, as both sides will bring you to similar places. And at the end of each hallway, we are going to be at the very far right end. We are going to make it to the thermal plants. We do have an A plant and a B plant, and these thermal stations provide a pretty decent amount of power to the base. And as usual, the first step in order to get into such an important place, gotta get through security, making sure you are who you are and you're supposed to be here and are able to work here. But once clearance has been given, immediately to the right will be the main thermal plant's control room. In here to monitor the entire thermal station's output and direct power to wherever it needs to go within the base, making sure we don't blow up. The room also features the main center console for whoever is our primary controller, and then there are also a lot of floor to ceiling windows that give you plenty of ample view of the thermal station below. I gotta imagine we have like Thermal City branded sunglasses that we just give to everybody, because I feel like you're just looking into the sun for like hours on end if you work in here. Probably not a healthy place. And the last part of the thermal control room is going to be the head main office for whoever is the manager of the whole plant. We will now leave the control room and head down to the other side of the hallway, which is where the workers of the plant can relax and also drop off any personal items in all the provided lockers. There's also a small clinic just in case there are any injuries for our field workers going into the plant, and a bathroom. Okay, I get it, that's a bench, but like, come on, what else could I use? Okay, I gotta interrupt for a second because while I was, just going around and getting footage of the base, I just realized that there was a hole in the base somewhere, and the lights have been off in the base the whole time. I didn't realize that. Yeah, if holes ever pop up in the base, they suck to find. But I found one, and lights are back on. Alright, back to the tour. Moving down through the rest of the hallway, now we are going to be getting closer and closer to the actual plant itself. So we've got a locker room that will allow all of our field workers the opportunity to prepare if they need to go outside and do any maintenance on our thermal plant itself. And at this point, our field workers will go through all ready and prepared, head down the ladder, go through the storage and the kind of barrier zone between the exit and our base, and head out onto the thermal plant platform itself. Also, weirdly enough, you would think that harvesting actual lava from the ceiling would give you like maximum power. But apparently this thing only goes up to 70%. I don't write the rules. With that, we have now gone through the entirety of the 4th bottom layer of the base. We'll head back up through the spiral ladder, and now it is time to go through the 3rd level, and this place is pretty packed because it supports most of our dorms and living areas for the residents, as well as a lot of the jobs and research areas for the base. To begin with, there are 2 rooms that are at the very end of the initial hallway when you get out of the spiral ladder. We're going to begin by talking about these 2 rooms. Pick either side. We're going to technically go left if you're facing away from the spiral ladder. I guess right if we are facing towards it. Anyways, whatever direction it is, at the end of the hallway, one of the rooms is going to be the primary food production facility for the entire city. Besides the fact that Reginalds are a great source of food in the game itself, they also breed like really quickly, so they make an excellent source of food for our whole city. The facility also has an included greenhouse so that we can grow whatever plants and vegetables that we need to. Skipping all the way to the other side of the hallway is the fire station, where we got, I guess, the garage technically, but we have no vehicles. I don't really know what you'd call the beginning prep station where, they're putting up all their gear and stuff. And once we head into the fire station itself, there's going to be a dispatch area for all the signals and calls. And on the other side of that, there's going to be a kitchen and dining area for all the firefighters. While at the back, there are going to be 2 extra rooms for any firefighter that needs to rest and sleep, so that when they need to be on call, they're always ready to go. We now move down the long hallway, and I'm going to show you our 4 main dormitories for a majority of the residents in the base. And oh boy, don't you worry, with our 4 different dormitories, my naming skills are on full display here. But as you can see, I've designed the dormitories where it's mainly a common area. All of them are pretty much the same. And then just a couple of minor differences in the rooms themselves. Each dormitory has 2 one-person bedrooms just because of space, and then the middle being a 3-person bedroom. Just due to the way Subnautica really doesn't like symmetry in its big building, so just the way it has to be. We find ourselves back in the main hallway, where at about the halfway point is a major intersection that breaks off into 2 of the city's major zones, one of them being the nuclear power plant, and the other is Riley's Research Institute. We'll come back to the Research Institute in a bit, and instead, let's go and check out the nuclear power plant. Obviously, it doesn't really matter game mechanic wise, but I still think it'd be pretty important to put on a radiation suit before heading into the main reactor room, so there's plenty available in these lockers, and just a small area where engineers could probably make some repairs and any extra items if they need to tinker on the reactors. And in the main reactor room itself, there are actually 3 reactors, even though only one of them is actually active because, yeah, you would never need this much power. I mean, I'm still surprised that the thermal plant doesn't provide enough power on its own. We've got 2 of those places. But unfortunately, I still needed a bit more power, so I decided to throw in a nuclear power plant. And why not? We threw in 2 more. Back to the other side of the hallway, and now we're gonna go down over to Riley's Research Institute. As I mentioned before, I wanted an area that specializes in the research about 4546B itself and all of its various flora and fauna. The Institute also functions as a way for teaching students in order for them to pursue being full-time researchers at the Thermal City. And yeah, while building this, I feel like I'm now gonna give myself bad dreams of not completing a homework assignment even though it's Saturday. That happened to anybody else? Also, let me know if you have had classrooms like this. I have, and I never really liked them. I always chose to sit on the edge, and yeah, it was always super freezing in those classrooms. I don't know why. Getting over whatever school trauma I may be having, let's move over to the main labs of the Institute, where I also put down some extra containment rooms so we can house whatever specimen we may be wanting to study here at the Thermal City. So I skipped past it a little bit earlier, but now we're turning back to the hallway with the letters. In the middle, we will find the entrance for the Alien Containment Research Zone. And I would definitely say this area plays a massive role in the history of the city, probably where we get most of our funding, to be honest. You're probably very used to my security clearances at this point, maybe even a little tired of them, but we gotta be safe around here. So once we're past security, there is a reception area just to make sure you know where you're going, and we can head left or right. Now the containment research zone itself is separated into 3 different layers, kind of like the base itself, where the top is mainly meant for control rooms as well as more office and the paperwork kind of jobs. The middle is dedicated for our researchers, and the bottom is for the maintenance, where we've got some prawn stations, as well as storage and an exit for all of our field workers to be able to get in and out of the facility. Starting from the top, we've got a cafeteria here as well, so the workers don't have to go too far to get some food. It would probably be annoying to always have to walk through security again, so there are a lot of amenities here at the research zone so workers can stay on site. And to show the last bit of the top part of the containment zone, we've got the primary office, so any paperwork can be done, as well as the main head control room so we can monitor whatever the heck is happening at the containment zone, making sure nothing spooky comes out while we're not aware. As I mentioned before, the second layer is dedicated for our researchers, so it contains 2 labs that we use to study any alien relic. I want to say that the labs I feel most proud about because I think they just turned out really well. It was annoying having to put in all the decorations, but I think the detail came out perfectly. We now descend onto the 3rd level, which is also the bottom layer for the containment zone, and here is a locked room so that all the workers have an area to store their personal items, as well as some more bathrooms. Once again, you just gotta use your imagination a little bit. Next up, we'll head to the main security office that services the entire Thermal City. In here, we've got a huge wall for dispatch, coffee, a back locker room for all the officers, as well as desks for any miscellaneous paperwork. And once again, the decorations mod has been absolute clutch in allowing me to make areas feel just a bit more lived in. By adding all this random clutter around, to me it makes it feel like people are living here and working, or it makes it feel more abandoned, up to you. But here's another area I feel really good about, and it is the prawn deployment and the maintenance rooms. We've got 3 prawn suits that can be used for gathering any supplies or supporting around the base, and any mechanics can tinker around and do any needed repairs from the connected service room. And the last part of the containment zone itself is where we have most of the main storage, where we're probably putting any relic we find in the containment zone. We store them in here before they end up at the labs. And then to get to the containment zone, we have some locker rooms so that our outside workers can get prepared, suit up, and head out to the containment facility. You know, I did not realize just how big the third layer actually was until I started talking about it. Wow. Gonna make this next layer feel kind of tiny in comparison as we move on to the second layer, which is more recreational. And I've definitely allowed for a lot more glass and windows up here so residents feel a lot less suffocated. Once again, once we get out of the spiral ladder, we've got a nice open commons area for people to walk through, which then leads to all of our shops. And connected in the middle of all the shops is the city's main medical center, where when you walk in, you will see our main reception and the waiting room, where you can watch 10 episodes of Wheel of Fortune before your name is called. But once your name is finally called, and hopefully you didn't freeze in the waiting, you know, even though I know we're literally in like a magma zone and it's probably hot as heck, I'm still gonna believe our hospital's waiting room is colder than a freezer, because it's always like that. Anyways, we could head upstairs, and on the second floor of the hospital, there are gonna be 2 personal rooms so that a doctor can check up on any patients. So now we can leave the medical center and go right across into the community park. Just a nice area to relax and kind of forget about all the medical bills you just left behind. And so the last thing I would like to show you that is on the second layer are a set of personal rooms. Now I imagine that for these rooms, they are mainly meant for upper class kind of jobs at the base, generally like the government officials. I'd imagine they'd want their own set of rooms away from the dorms. And with that, we have now made it through 3 of the 4 layers of the base. And if you have made it here, thanks for sticking with me, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the tour so far. However, it is now time to show you the final top layer of the base. To get there, instead of the spiral ladder, there's actually a specific ladder back in the commons area. And once we make our way up, you will again see that I have separated some of the buildings using different levels. On the immediate level after having climbed the ladder from the second level and walking towards the back, here we have the city's main archives. I wanted to build this so that the city would have a place to be able to store any kind of records, generally like the discoveries made in the city, government decisions, or general history of the city itself like blueprints. And the room on the opposite side of the archives generally serves the same purpose, but more like a museum in order to house important artifacts or fossils that have been discovered. Man, it has been quite the journey so far. But now it is time to show you the last 2 rooms of the thermal city. And of course, due to their importance, you already know the drill. But once we have finally gotten through security and climbed up the ladder to get to the very tip-top layer of the base, we will have access to the city's Senate. Here, where major decisions and discussions for the city will be held. And I couldn't shake the fact that because it's a thermal lava zone, it feels like an evil layer sometimes. I'm not saying we have an evil Senate or anything, but it's just like, who knows what kind of discussions we could sometimes have up there. So we'll just go ahead and close that door to not disturb the discussions. Let's go ahead and cross on over to the other side where we will find Central Command. Here we can monitor all parts of the city's vital functions, as well as having enough radios so we can contact any part of the base that we need to. Wow, with that, I have now shown you the entirety of the thermal city. This was such a fun build to make. It took about a couple weeks to do so, but I'm glad to have done it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing it. Maybe you'll take some inspiration from this for your own base builds. Definitely let me know in the comments if you had a favorite room in the city. And especially, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you consider dropping a like if you did. Definitely helps me out, lets me know if I'm doing the right thing or not, and I hope you consider subscribing and sticking around with me for whatever video I decide to do next. I really appreciate the insight and the criticisms, which I use because I'm always looking to improve. I mean, from my last base tour to this one, I want to say I've probably made some big improvements since then. A large part of that have been a lot of helpful comments I've read. This definitely took a bit longer than I thought it would, but I think it's been just a fun journey, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Anyways, my name is Felix, thanks for coming by, and I'll see you next time. Bye!